Hey students, today we are going to talk about compound or combined shapes. They mean the same thing. And basically it refers to shapes like the ones on this page where they're wacky shapes. You don't know what the area formula is. If you look at something like this, for example, or the one above it, we don't know how to find the area of an L shape. So they call them compound shapes or combined shapes because they're shapes that we do know that are familiar put together into unfamiliar shapes. At the top, I have our formulas that might be helpful. If you want to take a screenshot of that, I think that would really help you out and put that on your page as well. So we know that the formula for finding the area of a rectangle is base times height. And we know that the formula for finding the area of a triangle is 1/2 times base times height. And we know that the base and the height have to meet at a right angle. So let's take a look at some of these problems. On number 1, there's this weird blocky blob shape. I don't know how to find the area of that, but I can split it up into shapes that I do recognize. We want to make this as simple as possible. Think in your head, how could you break this up into the fewest number of shapes that you recognize? If you thought of this line, you would be correct. Of course, we can go crazy and add more lines in, like you could add one here, and you could do one here, but then all of a sudden you're finding the area of 4 shapes. We don't want that. This allows us to find the area of just 2 shapes. So the way that you would show the work, you could either show the work inside the shapes themselves, or you can say like this is shape 1 and this is shape 2. So for shape 1, I need to do 48 times 48, and I'm going to do that in my calculator in a second. For shape 2, I need to do 48 times 80. I'm going to do that on my calculator in a second. Oops. So let's bring up the calculator, see if it gives me an add. 48 times 48 is 2,304. So that's the area of the top shape. In shape number 2, 48 times 80 is 3,840. What do you think we're going to do now? We have these 2 areas, but I am interested in the area of the total crazy shape. If you thought that we would add them, you'd be correct. So the last step would be to add this number plus this number up. I already have 3,840 on my calculator, so I'm just going to hit plus 2,304, and I get my answer of 6,144 inches squared. You do need units on that. All right, excellent. So let me get that out of the way. Never good at closing it out. All right, take a look at number 2. Try this one on your own. Pause the video, come back when you're ready to go over it. Now this one is interesting. Hopefully you're done, because there are actually 2 different ways you could do it. One way you could do it is to make this line right here. And then you would have a top shape and a bottom shape. I'm going to go through that solution first. If you did it this way, shape number 1 would be 2 times 2, which is 4. Shape number 2 would be 2 times 4, which is 8. And when you add them together, you get 12 feet squared. That's one solution. There's a second way of doing it where you should get the same answers. You could also have drawn the line this way. So if you draw the line this way, you have to kind of figure out what some of these shapes what the dimensions of some of these shapes are. I know that this length plus this length equals this length because it's the same width. So if the bottom is worth 4 and I know part of the top is worth 2, that tells me that the remaining top is also worth 2. So I have to actually start with that before I can do anything else. And then I have to do the same with the other direction as well. If I know that this is 2 and this is 2, but I'm missing this height right here, I have to add those up to get 4 feet. So with this, if you split it up this way, you have to do a little bit of extra work. So now this could be my shape 1 and this could be my shape 2. Shape 1 is going to be 2 times 4, which is 8. Shape 2 is going to be 2 times 2, which is 4, and that also equals 12 feet squared. So you get the same answer no matter how you split it up, but one of the ways, the first way, had less work than the second way. Regardless, that answer is 12 feet squared. All right, number 3. Now that's a crazy shape. We haven't had one with a point yet. So I'm thinking a triangle is going to be involved. If I'm thinking about how to break it up, my eye is kind of drawn to this, but that doesn't really help me. It creates actually a trapezoid on the top and a trapezoid on the bottom, which you could do if you know how to find the area of a trapezoid, but I don't want to deal with that. I want all rectangles and triangles, so I'm going to try again. What if I draw the line here instead? Then I'll have my shape 1 and my shape 2. I think that's going to work. Shape 1 is our rectangle or square, so that's not as difficult. So that's going to be 8 by 8, and that's 64. Shape 2 is a triangle, which is always a little bit harder. I have to do the 1/2 times base times height. So with triangles, you're required to write the formula down because it's harder. 1/2 equals 1/2 times base times height. 1/2 times, now what are my dimensions? I'm going to move this number 2 out of the way. I'm going to say, okay, this is shape number 2. So let's see. If I were to create a right angle on this triangle, it would look like this. Here would be my right angle. So in my picture, it's kind of like this triangle right here where the height goes down the middle. That's the only way that I can create a 90-degree angle. So let's see what those dimensions are. Up and down, if you look at this 8, that's going to slide across the picture, and this is going to be worth 8 as well, because they're opposite sides of a rectangle. So I know that one of my numbers is 8. My other number is going to be this right here. This is 4. So 1/2 times 8 times 4. In my head, I could take 1/2 of 8 first. That's 4. 4 times the other 4 is 16. So now I have to add my 64 plus my 16. And that equals 80 yards. All right. I think what I'm going to have you guys do next is try 4, 5, and 6. Pause the video, try them all, show the work. Come back when you're ready to go over 4, 5, and 6. Okay, hopefully you're ready to go over 4, 5, and 6. On number 4, you might try to get fancy and split it up like this, or some version of that, but that's too many shapes. I don't want to do all that work. If you just do one line right here, you have a shape 1 and a shape 2. So, shape 1 is going to be 40 times 40. I could do that in my head. 4 times 4 is 16, plus 2 zeros. Shape 2 is 20 times 80. 2 times 8 is also 16, plus 2 zeros. 1,600 plus 1,600 is 3,200 feet squared. Oh, and I just realized I forgot my yards squared before on number 3. Sorry about that. Yards squared for number 3, feet squared for number 4. So there would be number 4. Number 5, I think you could split this up in 2 different ways. You could draw a line here and have a shape 1 and a shape 2. Or you could draw a line here and have a shape 1 and a shape 2. Either way works. This way is going to be a little bit more work because you'll have to figure out what this length is and what this length is. this one is 12, but we don't know what this one is. So I'm going to split it up the other way. Either way will work though. I'm going to do it this way. So I have shape 1 and shape 2. Shape 1 is 14 times 15. I'm going to put that into a calculator because I don't want to do that work by hand. All right, move over to this side, please. 14 times 15 is 210. Shape 2, let's see, can't see what it is. All right, side by side, that'll make it easier. Here we are. Okay, so for my shape 2, 12 by 12, okay. 12 by 12 is 144. Lastly, 210 plus 144 is 354 centimeters squared. All right. Got one more to do. This is another weird pointy shape. So I'm going to divide it up into a triangle and a rectangle. My triangle is going to be my shape 1. I'm putting it off to the side so I can draw my line in there. And then shape 2 is the easier one. That's a rectangle. For my triangle, I know that it's not going to let me switch colors. Okay, use a highlighter. I know I want to find this right angle right here. It cuts down the middle, and I can see that the line going up and down is going to be that 21. So this is 21. And then the 32 from the bottom slides up and becomes 32 going across this way. So the triangle is going to have 21 and 32. Since I have to write out the formula for a triangle, 1/2 times base times height, that's going to be 1/2 times 21 times 32. And I want to type that into my calculator. 0.5 times 21 times 32 is 336. Shape 2 is 32 times 11. 32 times 11 is 352. To get the total, I have to add that up. I already had the 352 on my calculator, so plus 336, and that gives me 688 meters squared. So for these triangles, let me clear this out of the way. For these triangles, you're basically looking for the number off to the side and the number that's matched up with the bottom of the triangle. That's usually how these are going to work. Those would be the two numbers for that, for the triangle.